Hey guys, this is my Ask Me Anything video. We're gonna jump right into these questions. We're gonna keep it nice and quick. The first question is, when did you know you were a professional? I'm gonna answer this in a couple ways, probably about two. So I knew I had the potential to be a professional when my hard work paid off at the Veterans Park Open. So round one, I was competing with Holland. I was hanging in there. Round two, I was throwing with Holland. I just didn't putt like Holland. And round three was a little different. But that kind of gave me the perspective as I can do this, my skills are good, but when I knew I was a professional is when I went out to Las Vegas and I was playing the holes that I've been watching on coverage all this time, and I was birdieing them, and I was watching the other professionals. It's like, well, they're not throwing anything much different than I am. It's just a matter of whether who can putt or not. So that's when I knew I was a professional. Van life hygiene. I'm not in a van, I'm in an RV. So typically if we don't have a water hookup, they have bathrooms. If not, we have some friends and we'll go shower at their Airbnb, but otherwise we usually have access to water. How many aces have you gotten? I have 4 aces. I got my first ace like 3 months into playing. It was a super short course at Dash's track. It was hole 3. It was a patrol, a dynamic disc patrol. It's really flippy. It's a lot like a soul, just doesn't go as far. All right, Christopher Struck says, hey Caroline, let's play birdie, par, or bogey. Which of these 3 foods would you be most likely to go out for after a big win? Rank them from favorite to least. Sushi, steak, pasta. Steak. I love steak. Medium rare, ribeye, or a tomahawk. My go-to celebration dinner. Sometimes, mostly because they're, good steaks are expensive. Sushi would be my second. I like to cook sushi, a little bit of raw, but third would be pasta. Homemade spaghetti is one of my favorite foods, but I wouldn't go get pasta. It's not the same. All right, this is Jim Oak Hills. Caroline, I have 2 questions. What, if anything, are you attempting to do when you spin the disc clockwise between your index and middle fingers during your pre-shot routine? And 2, do you have a nickname or a nickname your friends call you other than Caroline? Thanks and Godspeed. So when I twist the disc in my fingers, a lot of people notice I do that claw thing on the tee. That's purely, as a beginner, I was taught to put it in my hand that way to learn to line up. I don't know if there's real truth to it, but at this point it's just because I don't even realize I do it. It's just comfortable for me. It's like a little tick, like some people have like weird movements, and that just so happens to be mine. Otherwise, I do not have a nickname. In high school, we all had weird names for softball, and it was Carl. Like mine was Carl because it's Caroline. But other than that, I don't have any nicknames. What was your life like before disc golf? Before disc golf, I spent a lot of time exercising, taking care of my husband and dogs, and I worked as a part-time softball instructor. So I taught kids from like 6 to 18 how to pitch and hit. Most of my clientele was about 8 to 12, and the 8 and 10-year-olds are my favorite. They're so cute, they love to learn, and at that age, they still really enjoy and love the game. Like they're learning the game, which is the beauty of it. What's your favorite local course here in the entire DFW Metroplex? I like Town Lake. It's not too long and it's not too short. It's in McKinney, so it was only 20 minutes from where I lived. It has a lot of shot shaping, but it's not super tight like Wooded, but it's not open like park golf. It's very enjoyable. The scenery is beautiful. The dogs can run off leash. There are some water hazards and snakes, so it comes with its faults, I suppose. What's your favorite shot? What got you hooked on disc golf? And what's your preferred type of course to play? My favorite shots are like baby hyzer flat forehand shots with my nukes because they go really far. It's something that I've developed to be consistent. Like I know what it's gonna do. And plus I just really love to throw forehands. What got you hooked on disc golf? I think it was just when you finally achieved like throwing the disc the way you wanted it to, and I guess just the adrenaline and the positivity you get from doing good things. Like, I think we get that like as athletes from sports, and so that was just something where I could be competitive at, I could practice, and I love doing like mechanics, like body mechanics, and so I just kind of fell in love with practicing and getting better and seeing improvement. My preferred type of course, I like the middle between golf park and woods. So it's like I would like it to be a little bit more open, and it makes you have specific shots, but not so tight that even if you miss it by like an inch, it goes haywire. So that's my preferred course. Hi, great seeing you on tour. How do you prepare mentally before tournaments, and what keeps you focused playing so many rounds? When I'm in my practice rounds and like things may go weird or may not be as comfortable as I want it to be, I just remind myself that I haven't been playing that long, and I'm gonna give myself some grace. So it's okay if one day's a little weird, because it's not gonna be like that the next day, because everything's always like this, and usually it's a upward escalation. I just tell myself that I've gotten good fast, all my hard work is paying off, and I am still allowed to make mistakes. Like, I really haven't been playing that long. It's easier said than done. I do have to have reminders from some of the people around me, but I know it'll all be okay in the end. My family's still gonna love me. I still enjoy disc golf. It's fine. What keeps you focused on playing those so many rounds? Being one of the best players, and just learning in general. So I don't tend to lose focus just because I'm super hyper competitive, and I think that's what kind of gives me an edge in that department. Disc golf bro tour. What's your favorite thing to do that does not involve disc golf? I really like spending time with my dogs and my friends, and otherwise watching TV. Prior to disc golf, I really loved playing computer games. Like, one of the first games that I played was like a first-person shooter, was Valorant. Super fun, really competitive. Otherwise, I would paint or draw. This is Kanupat. I always like to ask off-the-course questions. Although I'd like to know more about your health and fitness routine, I'd ask you this instead. Who was your first concert? Where was it at, and when was it? My first concert, I believe, was Edgefest in 2012. I got to see Paramore, A Day to Remember, Bush, and a few others, but I think Paramore was the most enjoyable. It wasn't really my first concert, it was just like a grouping of concert. But my favorite concert that I've ever been to was Avenged Sevenfold. They were the finale, and they were so good. Everyone was so hyped. People were so hyped they actually did 2 encores, and it was so fun to be a part of. Sandbar DG, who would be on your FPO dream card and why? It would be Holland, just because anytime we play together or spend time with each other on the course, she's always teaching me new things. It's fun to watch her because she's put in as much hard work as I have, and she's super athletic. She's super smart and, knows what's going on. Paige Pierce, because she's a blast. She's so fun. She's energetic, kind, and she absolutely hammers on a disc. So I've loved watching her throw since I watched FPO disc golf. And Kristen Tatar, because prior to Holland, she was the only person who had my skill set, and so she's so clean, and she doesn't do anything fancy, but it works. It's awesome. So there's always something to learn from everybody, but I like learning from them the best. Just Rut asked, what would you have brand new beginners focus on first on their first or second round, so that they see some success and enjoy it the way we do? I would tell beginners to throw like a Mako or a Buzz or even a putter, just because it's going to teach you angle control first off, and it's also, they're going to fly further than your drivers initially, just because drivers, even if they're just a stable driver, like, they still have finish, so it's going to kind of push and then just come out of it, while a Buzz might go straight and have some finish, or a putter will do the same thing. It's just more enjoyable because it's easier to throw it straight. Putters that I would recommend are like a PA3, a PA1, Buzz, or mid-range would be like a Buzz, a Trust, Mako. It's just, that's what I wish I would have done, instead of putting a driver in my hand like a Zeus and just throwing it as hard as I could, my arms coming out of socket, it'll teach you form. Up and Down podcast asked, describe your perfect disc golf hole, and do you pay close attention to your stats? We'll answer the second question first. I don't pay attention to my stats because God bless them, and I do not envy their positions, but like some of the UDisc people aren't super accurate. Like we had one guy was like, are those the C2 whiskers or the C1 whiskers, pointing at the C2 whiskers? So it's just, I think we have some room to grow in training for the UDisc people. I appreciate everything that they do and they're awesome. Like I'm glad that we don't have to do that. So I don't pay attention to stats because it's not always the most accurate. Like I've had putting stats where like my C1 was so low because they counted my C2 putts as my C1s. So I don't pay close attention to it. Like I know how I played and I'm aware. Describe your perfect disc golf hole. It's a forehand hole. Like if I could throw like a nuke, like 350 to 375, like it doesn't have to be super open, but it doesn't have to be really tight either. Like I'd like that middle, just where I could throw a flat nuke, have it maybe turn a little bit and then come in. That's my favorite hole, just because it's the most consistent for me. So Rowdy Rousey fan asked, said, met you in Vegas and you were a really cool person to meet. Now, my question is, how cool was it meeting Kristen and having her sign your grace? I loved meeting Kristen. She was so sweet. She was interested in me and my game. She was asking questions and, we talked a little bit during that Waco round. I actually didn't bring the disc that day. I was devastated and I haven't quite seen her since, so I didn't get it signed. Maybe when I get on a lead card with her, I'll have it signed instead of just being put on a feature card. So maybe I'll make that my goal instead. What grip do you use for long drives? I don't power grip any of my discs. It's not comfortable for me. I've tried to learn it. I do like a modified power grip, so I hold it normal, but I just kind of stick that middle finger out. For me, it's like a balance control thing. Alan Cars 22 asked, what event are you most looking forward to playing? For me, it's MVP. That course looks fun and it's an established course. The holes make sense. I think it's one of those courses that everybody on tour looks forward to, so I'm really hoping I qualify for this year. Are there any other pros you've already gotten close with? Yes, Holland, she's one of my favorite people to practice with. I've spent a lot of time with Chandler Kramer and Robert Burridge. I've spent some time with Calvin Heimberg in this past week, and that was really, really fun. I've spent a lot of time with Luke. I have a nice little friend group around me. The last question they asked, have you ever considered adding vlogging casual rounds like Simon, Casey, etc. to the YouTube channel? We have. It's something that we are planning because we just don't want it to be like everybody else's. So we're trying to figure out like the perfect balance of like unique and entertaining, since it's like an FPO casual round video. So it'll be coming soon. We've talked about it and we're really excited about it. What's your go-to snack on the course? In the fall, I like to keep those pumpkin cream cheese muffins from Starbucks in my bag. They're delicious. They're my favorite. I love them. Otherwise, when it's not the fall, I'll keep like beef jerky or trail mix. Sometimes bananas, things that aren't like sticky or not easy to clean up. Biggest surprise about the touring life/lifestyle? This was asked by Poland Jesse. A lot of it was like, I knew there was going to be a lot of traveling. I just didn't understand how tough traveling in an RV can be, especially since this is our first rig. It's a giant rig and we've only had it for like 6 days at this point. I don't even think it's been 6 days. It's a giant learning curve. It's hard. Everything takes like an hour to figure out. Fortunately, the people like GK Pro have helped us a lot. Even the random people at the RV park has helped us a lot. But we'll Google Maps, from our current location to the next course, and they're like, it'll take 5 hours. No, it won't. It'll take like an extra 2 to 3 hours because you got to stop for gas or really diesel like 2 or 3 times. You're driving like 5 to 10 miles under the speed limit that adds like 30 minutes. It's just, things accumulate. So no, it's going to take like 2 or 3 hours longer than you anticipated. So it's kind of a beating, but I'm very grateful for it. Otherwise, what was surprising, and I kind of knew it was also going to be that way, was how professional the tournaments are and also how chill the like other people are. Like meeting everyone has been really nice because they're all like down to earth. There's a couple people who are a little, high strung, and that's okay. It's, totally fine. It's their personality, no judgment. But everyone's been really cool, and that actually surprised me. This one asked, what advice would you give someone looking to hop on tour? Savings, planning, etc. My situation's a little unique because I made this decision as an adult. So I've been saving since I got out of high school, and I'm 26 right now. So I've been saving all the way up until I was 25. I also had a house, I had a job. Like, I didn't just get out of high school and jump in on this. So money hasn't been too scary. Like, I'm not scavenging for things, but I would make sure you would save enough money for like your gas and your food. Make sure that you're doing decently well in your A's and B tiers. Like if you're like a male and you're like a 930 or a 950, I would give it a little longer. Like I would try to like consistently bump your scores up to like 1,000, because it's just the competition level. And even as a female, like as an 880 rated player, I wouldn't go get on tour because these tournaments are really expensive. Like Worlds, I'm pretty sure was like $375, and the Silver Series are a little bit cheaper. So for those bigger elite tournaments, I wouldn't do it. If you really wanted to play a tour event, play a Silver Series, because I can't remember the exact amount you would pay, but it's way cheaper. There's less people in the field, but it does give you those like elite course experiences. But otherwise, don't hop on until you're ready, because first off, those courses are really hard, and so you don't want your rating to take a beating. You don't want to be slowing down these other cards at those Silver Series events. And if you're doing pretty good at it, try to start making some friends, because those connections matter. Watching people play helps you because you have like that visual image relation. Also, when you make friends, you'll have people to stay with, you'll have people to travel with. You can ask them questions about your RV or your van or the best campsites or the best routes or the best Airbnb to stay in. So it's just really nice having people to talk to and connections and stuff like that. It's not so lonely. And that was a good thing about like GK Pro. It's like, they're our little family, and we kind of hopped in on that immediately. So we were never lonely. We, as my husband and I. Isaac Sal asks, favorite artist / podcast to listen to on your travel days. My favorite YouTube channel to watch is Y-Files, just because it's like a conspiracy theory thing. It's really interesting, but at the end he tells you what he might think, and he gives you like how this is kind of kooky. It's really interesting. I've also listened to like Brody Smith's podcast. I listen to Smashbox sometimes. That's kind of it. What is your favorite pre-match music to listen to? I actually don't listen to music before my rounds. Music gets me too pumped. Like if I was going to play a softball game or run a track meet, like I would want that music. It gets me hyped up and ready to go. But in tournament days, like you want to try to keep your tournament juice to as close as practice juice as possible. Because I've let myself get very excited, and I'll push discs like 60 feet, 60, 70 feet further, and now I'm OB. Like, so if I was going to throw it that hard, I would have to drop down to a fairway instead of keeping it like a smooth driver. So that's my opinion. I see people with music all the time. So it just kind of depends on who you are. I'm not that way. I also think music kind of pulls me away from the moment, and since things are so new for me, I like to take in my environment. Kind of like round 1 in Waco was like that when I was on that feature card. Like there was a million people looking at me. I'm with Paige, Kristen, and Lucky, and so I just felt like I didn't have enough time to absorb that environment. So that's just me. Mighty Smurfs ask, I'll be one of the volunteers Saturday and Sunday. Hopefully get to watch you crush in this course. I played it the other week and shot 13 over, LOL. I know you'll still do better. Oh, that wasn't a question. Oh, wait. It wasn't a question. Okay. Forehand question. All right. Roger Urbanock. I'm sorry if I butchered that. How do you keep your forehands from going too high? This was something I struggled with at the very beginning of learning my forehands. And so what tends to happen when you're throwing those forehands high and sawed off, it's usually because of dragging. as you like break your arms and take your stride and you start driving your hips, like your shoulders might dip and your arm does like a little leaning thing like this. And so there's like a couple things that I have to tell myself is, one, keep your shoulders parallel to the ground, especially for me, because my goal is to throw things like really close to flat. And even when you're throwing hyzers, I feel like some people, instead of like leaning over at the waist, keep your shoulders level, they'll like do this, right? So it's like even if you keep your thumb down for forehands, you're already throwing it up high. So it's just really important to try to keep your shoulders parallel to the ground. So it's like a core thing, like you want to feel your balance. Otherwise, if you know you're keeping your shoulders parallel and you're not leaning and dragging, another thing that your forehands could be going high is how much pressure or is the angle of your drive down when you start driving your hips. So like some people, instead of keeping it like a sharper exponential drive, they'll go like this. And so they'll straight up just drop their arms down below their waist. And so the way I learned to combat that was two things. One is when I separate, I try to keep both arms in that line. And so you're like separating into like an L scarecrow position. And two is when you're starting that drive down, you're thinking about taking like this part of your thumb and driving it into the ground. And so like a great drill I would do is I would, put my front toe up and I would just snap the disc into the ground. And so I would keep it like literally vertically into the ground, just kind of getting used to that move. And then I would look out to where my target needs to be and I would try to replicate that move. And so I'd try to, snap my fingers into the target like that. It takes some practice, so if you go out, one day and you haven't figured it out, give yourself some grace and give yourself some time. It'll be totally fine. You'll get it eventually. All right, on to the next one. So Mike Schmidt asks, when you were learning to throw your backhands, was there something you did to help yourself from throwing nose up? Oh, nose up is so many things. It's hard to just kind of pin it down to one thing, because nose up could just be balance. It could be you simply doing this at the end of your throwing motion, so you'll come through here and go like that instead of like that. So it's kind of just, or it's even your grip. Like you could be even doing this, but you don't have enough thumb meat underneath or on top of the disc, and your hand is just literally straight up nose up. So for me, I never really had the keeping my hand up problem. Mine was a balance issue. And so when I take my last step, I'd let my chest go down and then I would swing my shoulders up. And then the only other thing was I'm a this kind of person. And so I will sometimes get like abrasions on the inside of my right hand ring finger, or I'll get blisters. And so that's just me having to consciously think, this, right? Instead of this. Disc Golf Bro Tour asked, I actually missed this, if you could be anything in the world besides a disc golfer, what would it be and why? So growing up, I loved horses. And so horses are really expensive and it just wasn't in the cards for me. So instead I went off and played softball, but like my dream career was dressage. And so I wanted to have a nice ranch, with like 30 acres and have a few, expensive horses, breed horses and, train horses for dressage. That would have been my dream life if, different cards were handed to me, but I'm still blessed. I love it, but I love horses. I don't think I answered this one yet. So Disc Golfing Dan asked, what are some of the unexpected pros and cons of the tour life so far? So something that was a shock to me at the beginning was like, like the first couple turns were super professional just because I think they were elite series. But when we started getting into like some different tournaments, like lower ones, it was kind of frustrating that like round one, they had like the first FPO cards, because like I have the worst luck. I swear I get on the first card of every round one tournament unless specified otherwise. Like I will always be the first card out. And we had like 8 women putting on one basket. Like they had set nothing up. They didn't put the throwing nets up. They hadn't put any of the baskets up or anything like that. And so we did, I did not, but someone had, complained about it. And so of course, 30 minutes later, here's the nets and here's the baskets. And so that was something I thought was really unprofessional. Like that should have been the first thing that got put up. That way, those people who have the 8:30 rounds or the 8 o'clock rounds, when they get there 45 minutes early, like that would have already been ready to go. But it's okay. It wasn't like that the next 2 days. The other cons, it's just traveling's a lot. It just takes a long time. But really, I'm pretty much happy with everything else. Everyone's cool. Most of the tournaments have been really, really well ran. Like, I really enjoy it. Oh, I missed this one. This one's Ray of Sunshine 41414. Dying to learn tips to get my hips more engaged for a right-hand backhand drive. I can't wait to hear about this. New sponsor also. That comes out on Thursday, right before Music City Open. Getting your hips involved, it's about your footwork and balance, which kind of go hand in hand. So when I was teaching myself to kind of get my hips involved, to be fair, I already had softball behind me, and so I was a power right-hand hitter, but I could also hit left-handed, and so I already kind of knew how to drive my hip. But like when I was teaching myself how to throw a backhand, I like, if my feet were flat on the ground and I was taking that step with your left foot and the toe would hit, I would kind of exaggerate that, like switch your heel, drive the knee, switch your heel, drive the knee, because that's your first move. If you can get that weight driven into your front leg, that back hip's gonna rotate on its own. But like if you're not gonna drive that weight out of your back leg, you either don't get the weight out in general, and you'll like drag your back leg and your back half like won't pop through the disc. But what helped me started finishing my rotation was whenever I got to that foot point and I started driving my knee, I thought about taking my left side and just pushing it through the move. Like you'll see, like I'll get here and then I go like this, right? And that's what helps me launch the disc. So it's a lot of feel, but I would start with your footwork. Like I would take one step out, drive, right? One step out, drive. And then, you know, after you get comfortable with that move, take one step, drive, turn, one step, drive, turn, and then put a disc in your hand. And all you're focusing on is how you use your legs. So you're not really trying to overdo things with your upper body. You're just trying to keep it nice and loose and letting the body drive that move. So again, patience. It's going to take time. You're not going to go out there and it's going to work right away. So, you know, give yourself some grace and some time. This one, or Dylan Furred, sorry, or Eford, I'm not sure. If you could theoretically play anywhere, where would you play? Jungle, Everest, etc. I don't know exactly where I would play. I would just want 7-degree weather. That way I don't sweat and my hands don't get all sweaty and stuff like that. A gorgeous view. So I would maybe like a mountain view, or like maybe a mountain valley with some water view. Nothing too wooded. You know, woods are pretty. It's just that golf is, if I want to go have a good time and like not have to like really focus, it's not woods golf, which is okay. One day it'll be better. All right, that's a wrap for my first Ask Me Anything video. Thank you so much for participating. I really appreciate everyone's support and comments. Please make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. I really appreciate it. It helps push some of my content. Like I said, you guys are great, and I appreciate everything you've done and said. Enjoy yourself, and see y'all on the next one.